My Hero Academia Season 5 Episode 21 is out, and with this new episode we see Shigi and the gang enter into Deika City and face off against their toughest opponent yet. Finally, it's time for the League of Villains versus the Meta Liberation Army. This episode covers just under 6 chapters from the My Hero manga, following the events of chapters 218, 224, 225, 226, 8 pages of 227, and 228. Yep, they are rocketing through this arc. And so, without further ado, let's jump right into My Hero Academia Season 5 Episode 21, titled Revival Party. And as usual, don't forget to Detroit smash that like button and slide into that subscribe button's DMs to hit that notification bell. This episode opens up with a minute-long introduction to the Meta Liberation Army, which is great and all, but it's no 15-minute and 56 seconds lunchtime crew extravaganza that discusses everything said about the MLA here and more. Please, for the love of God, watch the video, I'm desperate. But anyway, straight after this brief introduction, the story cuts back to the League of Villains, Dabi included, who have just arrived at the outskirts of Deika City, a city which consists almost entirely of Meta Liberation Army soldiers. Mr. Compressed notes how in 1 hour and 40 minutes, the monster known as Gigantomachia will wake up and make his way over to the city in his hunt for Shigaraki, meaning that they will have to hold their own against the MLA until he arrives. However, as the League are discussing their plan of action, the hero Slip and Slide makes his presence known, revealing himself to be a Meta Liberation sympathizer, and he offers to guide this group of villains into the city. Upon arriving into Deika City proper, the League come face to face with Koku Hanabata, a well-known politician, and Chitose Kazuki, an esteemed news journalist. Hanabata informs the League that 90% of the population of Deika City are dormant MLA soldiers, and that this is one of the few places they would call a liberated district. Although the warm welcomes and introductory speeches quickly come to a close, as shortly after dropping this exposition, Hanabata announces that the Meta Liberation Revival Party has officially begun, and hordes of MLA soldiers begin to swarm the League. As the League of Villains are fighting and killing people without a moment's hesitation, might I add, like they are straight up murdering dudes left, right, and center, Twice angrily shouts out asking for the safe return of his friend Girin like they promised. Hanabata happily informs Twice that Girin is being kept up in Deika City Central Tower along with the leader of the MLA, Redestro. In hearing this, Master of the Skies and the Queen of Kings herself, Himiko Toga, begins to make her way over to the tower. As we know, breaking and entering is very much her speciality. But before she can get too far, a small explosion seemingly ignites at her feet and she gets blasted forward and knocked on the ground. It's quickly unveiled that this explosion was caused by none other than esteemed journalist and MLA leading member Chitose Kazuki, who goes by the codename Curious. Upon knocking the best blood-related best girl, other than Stain of course, to the ground, Curious pitches the headline for her up-and-coming news article all about the life and death of Toga, and she asks Toga if she can have a personal interview with her right now. To which Toga understandably responds, no, consent is key, folks. The story then briefly cuts away to Girin and Redestro, watching all of the ensuing chaos from the central tower. Girin tells Redestro that he is utterly screwed, because soon the League is going to unleash their army of Nomus and kill everyone in the city. But Redestro immediately calls out this bluff, stating that there are numerous factors and reports that lead him to believe the League no longer has access to any of their Nomus. Following this, we then cut back to Toga and Curious's confrontation, where Curious explains how she has no interest in making an article all about the League or of their doings, but she does have a fascination with Toga. Curious is, well, curious, no pun intended, about Toga's upbringing and the reason why she turned to a life of villainy. However, as Curious is explaining this, Toga wastes no time Mortal Kombating a dude, and she tries to quickly eliminate Curious. Unfortunately, this doesn't turn out too well for our beloved sweet blood-crazed insane bitch. pitch, as she gets hard countered by Curious's goons and knocked into a nearby building that immediately starts to explode thanks to Curious's quirk, Landmine, which allows her to turn anything she touches into a bomb. Now these bombs aren't considered very lethal, but they can prove to be extremely dangerous when there are a lot of them. After all of the bombs in the building have detonated, Toga then gets jumped by 4 of the MLA's goons, but she just barely manages to outmaneuver the group and stick syringes in all of them, giving her access to their blood. Although in a surprise twist, it turns out that Curious has turned all of her goons into bombs. Talk about dedication. Not only causing each of them to explode, but also all of their blood, resulting in a bunch of mini explosions taking place within Toga's body. Curious then proceeds to give us a little breakdown on Toga's biography, as Toga herself is being thrown about the place unintentionally, walking into landmines like it's nobody's business. After coming down with a serious case of explosions, Toga eventually ends up back on the main road in front of Curious, where she finally caves to Curious's constant inquiries when Curious asks, "How did you become insane?" Toga finally responds to this question with a question of her own. What is a normal life? And after Toga asks this question, she picks herself up off the ground, admitting that she does in fact agree with the MLA's ideology, that there should be no restrictions or regulations on quirks. And it's here where Toga finally reveals her true and horrifying face, claiming, "I will live a normal life too." We then get a quick flashback to Toga's origins, where we learn that Toga's obsession with blood and drinking the blood of the thing she loves started at a very young age. But her parents scolded her for her actions and told her to just be normal. This resulted in Toga being forced to hide her true feelings and desires, putting on the guise of the perfect young girl for most of her life. That is until one day when she witnessed someone she deeply admired, a boy who looked suspiciously like Midoriya, get into a fight and start bleeding. Seeing her crush covered in blood was the breaking point for Toga, and so the next day she finally dropped her sweet and innocent, perfectly normal facade, cut the boy open, and started drinking his blood in the middle of the school, her way of expressing her deep love for him. After learning all of this, Curious begins to empathize with Toga, stating that her desire to drink a loved one's blood is more than likely the product of a feeling of admiration combined with a fascination of blood, which stemmed from her quirk. And Curious continues, saying that Toga is the perfect example of the flaws in their current supernatural society, because she turned to a life of villainy and murder as a result of her natural instincts, which were affected by her quirk, not matching up with society's status quo. In simple terms, according to Curious, Toga became a villain because instead of being nurtured and taught how to use her quirk in a proper and safe manner, she was instead forced to repress her true and natural feelings to fit in with everyone else. It's some pretty heavy stuff when you think about it. Curious and her goons then proceed to pose with Toga as if they're in some sort of Renaissance painting, as Curious proclaims that Toga will be a martyr for the Meta Liberation Army, and her story will be one of the key entries in the Meta Liberation Army's new holy book. So in this context, Toga will essentially be the Jesus of the MLA's Bible. That's a weird concept to think about. But anyway, after proclaiming all of this, Curious asks Toga to confirm everything she just said about Toga's life, so that she can officially end the interview. And in response to this, Toga makes a desperate dash away from Curious. As Toga is running away, her inner monologue explains that she doesn't like Curious at all, and that she never saw her instincts or natural feelings as unfortunate. When she's happy, she smiles big, and just like how people kiss the people they love, she drinks their blood. There is nothing unfortunate about that. While Toga is thinking this, she also pulls out a vial of saved up blood and drinks it, which causes her to take the form of Ochako Uraraka. Curious's goons show up once again, hitting Toga with everything they have, trying to stop her from getting away, and eventually Toga does succumb to her wounds. And as she lays on the ground, she thinks about how lucky Uraraka is that she trusts and gets to be so close to Midoriya. Curious, seeing the broken Toga on the ground, rushes up to her and demands that she finish their interview. But just as Curious is about to attack Toga with more of her landmines in a truly desperate moment, Toga proclaims how she wants to be just like Ochako. And as if the gods themselves heard her words, as she touches Curious's gauntlet, and with Ochako's blood in her system, she activates Uraraka's quirk. Toga, now filled with adrenaline in a pure fight-or-flight moment, proceeds to rush around to all of the nearby enemies, touching all of them using the anti-gravity quirk, causing all of them to float upwards into the sky. Curious, in shock at this new development, breaks down that the only reasonable explanation for Toga being able to unlock this new ability to use the quirks of the people she copies must have come about due to her being in a truly life or death situation. Toga, after coming down from her adrenaline high and after causing every enemy in the nearby area to float into the sky, realizes what she has just done, and she shouts out that she will love, live, and die normally, becoming what she loves. Toga then clasps her hands together, deactivating zero gravity, and all of the Meta Liberation Army members in the sky, including Curious, all plummet back down to their gruesome deaths. The next thing we see is a truly broken and battered Toga making her way into an empty supply shed and collapsing out of exhaustion, with her last words being, "The things we hate should be destroyed." Right, Tomura? And this is where episode 21 comes to an end. Or at least it would have if it was given the pacing it deserves. Instead, this episode continues, cutting over to Tomura Shigaraki, who, in an overtired state, thanks to all the sleepless nights he had fighting against Gigantomachia these past months, begins to have visions of his past. In these flashbacks, Tomura sees a picture of Nana Shimura, his grandmother, hugging a small, happy, black-haired child. And he also sees a mysterious black-haired, pigtailed girl who calls Tomura by his real name, Tenko, and tells him that she is rooting for him. Tomura can't fully remember the context of these memories, but he states that he does remember the feelings they gave him. At the time, it felt like a weight off his shoulders. However, Shigaraki starts to get angry about how he can't remember anything else about these flashbacks, and in his anger, he jumps on a nearby wall and casually decays an entire mob of MLA soldiers with one hand. It's also important to note here that this is the first time Shigaraki decayed people he wasn't touching. That's right, he was able to decay numerous people by just touching one person. And they just casually mention this right here. The story then quickly cuts around to the other League members. Compress and Spinner are still off fighting MLA members, and Dabi comes face to face with Getten, the soft-spoken enforcer of the Meta Liberation Army, that wields an uber-powerful ice manipulation ability that allows him to perform such moves as making literal dragons out of ice. So yeah, it's Dabi, the wielder of an extremely powerful fire quirk, facing off against Getten, the wielder of an uber-powerful ice quirk. It's almost like if Endeavor faced off against his wife Rei. Wait, no. Twice runs off in search of Toga, and he eventually finds her broken but still breathing body in the shed she collapsed in. However, episode 21 ends as Skeptic, one of the leading members of the MLA, sends a group of his puppets, which he created using his quirk, that look identical to Twice, after him, really messing with his head in an attempt to capture him alive. Overall, this was a pretty decent episode. There was a lot of action and some pretty great moments, like Toga's new ability horrifyingly being revealed, some glimpses into Shigi's past, Shigi's quirk improvement, and the introduction of Getten. Plus, having an episode centered primarily around Toga was pretty great. She's an absolutely insane character, and I love that the reason for her killing people and drinking their blood is just that's how she shows love. There's no super tragic backstory. She's just insane, and she loves it. I will say, however, the pacing of this episode did throw me off a bit. I very much expected this episode to end with Toga's new power reveal. I thought it would be a much better cliffhanger, and it would help emphasize the true terror of this moment. However, Toga's fight ends with a quarter of the episode left, which not only made the whole fight feel kind of rushed, but also made everything after it feel less important as well. I know there's only a few episodes left, and they have to get this arc done, but damn, are they flying through it. Not only are they going through like 5 chapters an episode, but they are also skipping some pretty great content. Now, it might show it in the next episode, but after Curious's death, there is a shot of Redestro with tears in his eyes, showing that he genuinely cares about his comrades. Also, I feel the Meta Liberation Army aren't really getting the time and proper introduction they deserve. Like, they introduced 4 of their key members in this one episode, and one of them just fucking died. I know Curious doesn't really get much time in the manga either, but she legit got less than 12 minutes of screen time. In my opinion, for this arc to work, you want the enemies to feel threatening and mysterious, but at the moment, they're really feeling more like cannon fodder than anything else. I guess my biggest gripe with this episode is just that it covers too much too quickly, which is a real shame, because I know that's all got to do with the time restraints caused by the new movie and arc rearrangement, and nothing to do with their actual passion and love for this story. Overall, I'd give this episode a 7.5 out of 10. It sure as hell wasn't lacking in action, and it was definitely better than a lot of episodes at the start of the season, but it moved too fast to allow us to really soak it all in and enjoy the little moments. But let me know what you thought of this episode. If you like this video, don't forget to leave a like. For more My Hero content, subscribe to the Lunchtime crew. Thank you so much for watching, and I'll see you in the next video. Plus Ultra.